My wife cheated on me for 6 months with her coworker, but when my flight got canceled and I followed her to a Starbucks, I discovered every lie and ended 10 years of marriage without giving her a second chance. I'm 34 years old. I work in sales for a tech company, and what happened a few months ago still has me processing everything. I mean, almost 10 years of marriage don't just go away like that, you know? But I need to tell this story because basically my entire life changed in a matter of days, and the truth is that part of me still can't believe it all ended that way. I guess I should start from the beginning, or at least from the moment when everything started going to hell, although looking back, I think the signs were there for months, and I just didn't want to see them. Vanessa and I met when we were like 24, at one of those boring parties with friends of friends where nothing interesting usually happens. But that night she was there, and I don't know. We connected immediately. We got married 3 years later, like a small wedding because neither of us wanted a giant event. And honestly, the first few years were good. I mean, we had our fights like any couple, but nothing serious. You know what I mean? She worked at an accounting firm, had crazy hours during tax season, but I understood. I also traveled a lot for my work, so we were both used to having our own space. We lived in a small but nice house on the outskirts of town, the typical suburban neighborhood with yards and barking dogs, you know the type. The thing is that in the last 2 years, things had been a little weird. I couldn't say exactly what, but like the energy between us had changed. Vanessa was more distant, always on her phone, working late more frequently, and when I tried to talk to her about it, she would tell me she was stressed with work and that I was being paranoid. And well, I believed her because why not? We'd been together almost 10 years, and there had never been a reason to distrust, so I thought maybe it was true. That her company was demanding more from her, or that she was going through something personal that she didn't want to share yet, but that, those excuses you make to not see what's right in front of you. Everything exploded like 4 months ago, in March I think, or maybe it was late February. I don't remember exactly the date, but I do remember the day perfectly, because it was Tuesday, and I had a scheduled work trip to Chicago. One of those boring 3-day conferences where you basically sit and listen to presentations and do forced networking. The thing is, I got to the airport and turns out my flight was canceled due to bad weather, a storm thing or something like that, and the next option was to leave the next day early. I called my boss, explained the situation, and since the conference didn't start until Wednesday afternoon, he said no problem, take the morning flight, and that's it. So I went back home. I got in the car and started driving back. It was like 3 inches the afternoon and I was thinking about calling Vanessa to tell her I'd come back and maybe surprise her with something. I don't know, pizza or Chinese food. But before calling her, I decided to stop at a gas station because the tank was almost empty. And that's where everything started to fall apart, literally. Because while I was filling the tank, I saw a car that looked familiar across the street. A silver Honda Civic exactly like Vanessa's. And I thought, nah, it must be another car, because she should be at the office. But something made me look closer and it was her car. It had the same stupid cat sticker she had put on the back window. The car was parked outside a Starbucks in an area of town where she normally had no reason to be, like on the complete opposite side from where her office was. And I just stood there like an idiot, with the gas nozzle in my hand, thinking, what the hell is she doing there? I finished filling the tank, crossed the street, and confirmed that yes, it was her car, the plates matched and everything. I called Vanessa. My hands were shaking a little. I don't know why. And she answered like on the third ring with that voice you put on when you're faking normalcy. And I said, hey honey, where are you? And she, without hesitating even a second, told me at the office working. Why? And I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach because I had just confirmed that her car was literally 20 meters from where I was standing, and she was lying to me directly. I didn't say anything at that moment. I don't know why. I guess I was in shock or something. I just told her, oh, nothing. Just wanted to know how you were. My flight got canceled, but I'm leaving tomorrow. And she said, okay, honey, take care, love you, and hung up. I stood there for like 10 minutes trying to process what had just happened, looking at her car and waiting to see if she would come out of Starbucks, but she didn't come out. I decided to stay there. I had nothing better to do anyway. I parked in a place where I could see her car, but where she wouldn't see me if she came out. And I waited. Like half an hour passed and she came out of Starbucks, but she wasn't alone. There was a guy with her. A guy I didn't know. Tall, dark hair like our age or maybe a little older, and they were walking very close to each other, In that way you walk when you're with someone you're comfortable with. They stood next to Vanessa's car for a few minutes talking, and from where I was, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see that she was laughing, touching her hair in that way she does when she's flirting, and the guy was leaning toward her as if they were going to kiss, but they didn't, at least not there. Vanessa got in her car, and the guy walked toward another parking lot. I followed her, keeping at a safe distance, and she drove straight to a supermarket near our house, like that supermarket we used to go to together on weekends to do the shopping. She got out of the car, practically running, went into the supermarket, and I followed her inside, keeping hidden between the aisles like a damn private detective from a cheap movie. I saw her grab some random things, milk, bread, things we clearly didn't need because I had done shopping the previous weekend, and she looked nervous, checking her phone every 2 seconds. She paid and ran back to her car, and I did the same. I got home like 10 minutes after her, and when I walked in, she was in the kitchen, putting away the groceries, acting like nothing. She saw me, and got a little startled, and told me I thought you were in Chicago, and I said my flight got canceled. I'm leaving tomorrow. And she just said, "Oh, okay," and kept putting things away. I asked her how was your day, and she said good. The usual. Lots of work, and I just stood there thinking seriously. Are you going to look me in the eyes and lie to me so blatantly? I didn't say anything that night. I pretended everything was normal. We had dinner together watching Netflix, her checking her phone every 5 minutes and turning it face down every time I looked in her direction, and me thinking about 1,000 things. At the same time, trying to understand what the hell was going on. I left the next day to Chicago as planned, but I couldn't concentrate on anything during those 3 days. Basically, the whole conference was a blur because my head was completely somewhere else. I would text Vanessa asking her what she was doing, and she would respond with the most generic answers possible. At work, at home, watching TV, tired, going to sleep, that kind of thing. When I came back Friday night, she was acting super weird, like extra affectionate in a way she hadn't been in months. She asked me all about the trip with an interest that seemed forced, and I just played along because I still didn't know what to do with what I had seen. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Vanessa started coming home later, like 9 or 10 at night, always with the excuse that she had a lot of work, client meetings, urgent projects, and I would nod and say, "Okay," but inside, I was going crazy. Her phone became an extension of her body. She never left it anywhere. She took it even to the bathroom, and when she got notifications, she would quickly check them and delete them as if they were evidence of a crime. One night, I think like 2 weeks after the Starbucks thing, I told her I was going out with Isaiah, a friend of mine from work, to have some beers, but what I actually did was drive to Vanessa's office to see if her car was there. It was like 8 at night. She had told me she would be working late, and her car wasn't in the parking lot. I looked around the whole damn place twice and nothing. I called her. She answered after like 6 rings, and I asked her, "Hey, are you still at the office?" And she said yes. Why? And I told her just checking, and hung up. I drove around the city aimlessly for like an hour, trying to decide what to do, whether to confront her directly or keep investigating to have concrete proof. I decided to keep investigating because something told me that if I confronted her without solid evidence, she would just deny everything and make me feel like the crazy, paranoid one. So for the next few days, I started paying more attention to everything. Her schedules, her excuses, the patterns of her lies. I noticed that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she always came home especially late, and that she always had the same excuse of meetings with a specific client she never mentioned by name. One Thursday night, like 3 weeks after the Starbucks incident, I told her I had to work late at home on some reports, and she said, "Perfect, I'll also be late. See you around 10. And I said, "Okay." I waited until she left the house, like at 6:30 the evening, and I followed her, keeping enough distance so she wouldn't see me. She drove south of the city, to a residential neighborhood I had never visited, and she parked outside a small house with a front yard and a black Mazda CX 5 the driveway. She got out of the car, walked to the door, and the same guy I had seen with her at Starbucks opened the door and let her in. I parked like half a block away where I could see the house, but where it was unlikely they would see me, and I sat there feeling like I was going to throw up, literally. My hands were sweating and my heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stayed there for almost 4 hours. I don't know what I was expecting to see exactly. Maybe I was waiting for them to come out together or something like that. But she didn't come out of the house until almost 10:30 at night. When she came out, the guy walked her to her car. He hugged her, like a long hug, not one of those friend hugs. And when they separated, he kissed her on the cheek very close to her lips, and she got in her car and left. I took out my phone and took pictures of everything. The house, the address, the Mazda's license plate, Vanessa coming out of the house, the hug, everything. I needed to have evidence of what I was seeing, because I knew that when I finally confronted her, she was going to try to deny it or spin everything around. The next 3 days, I did the same thing. I followed her on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it was the same pattern every time. She would arrive at that house around 7 at night and leave after 10. I did some research and discovered that the house was owned by a guy named Zachary, 36 years old, worked at the same firm as Vanessa but in a different department. I found his LinkedIn profile and everything. Everything was starting to make sense. The late arrivals, the secrecy with the phone, the lies about where she was. She had been having an affair with this guy for months, and I had been too much of an idiot or too trusting to realize it before. Saturday morning, after a week of following her and gathering evidence, I decided it was time to confront her. Vanessa was in the kitchen making coffee, acting completely normal, as if she wasn't destroying our marriage behind my back, and I sat at the table with my phone in my hand and told her we need to talk. I looked at me with that innocent, confused face that I now know was completely fake and told me, "Okay, what's up?" And I took out my phone, opened the photos I had taken, put them in front of her and said, "Do you want to explain to me what the hell this is?" I saw her turn pale, literally. All the blood drained from her face in a matter of seconds, and she started stuttering, trying to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. I continued. I told her, "I know you've been going to Zachary's house. I know you've been lying about working late. I know you looked me in the eyes for weeks and lied to me over and over again. And I want you to tell me the truth now because there's no point in continuing to lie." She started crying. Those tears that I don't know if they were real or just part of the show. And she told me, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Anthony. I didn't want it to happen, but it happened, and I don't know how to explain it." I asked her how long. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" And she said like 6 months. It started as something casual. We were working together on a project, and one night after working late, we went for drinks, and one thing led to another, and I just couldn't stop. I sat there listening to her give me pathetic excuses, saying it didn't mean anything, that it was just physical, that she loved me and that she wanted our marriage to work, and I just thought, seriously? 6 months. 6 months of lies and deceit, and you expect me to just forgive it because now I caught you? I told her it was over, that this was done, and that I wanted a divorce. She started begging, literally got on her knees in front of me crying, saying she would do anything to fix this, that she would end things with Zachary, that we would go to couples therapy, that she would change. But I had already made my decision. I couldn't continue with someone who had lied to me for half a year, who had looked me in the eyes every night and acted like everything was fine while she was with another guy. I told her she had until the end of the day to process all this, but that I was going to stay with Isaiah for a while we decided how to handle the situation. I packed some things, clothes, toiletries, my laptop, basic stuff, and I left the house. Isaiah received me without asking questions. He just gave me the keys to the guest room and told me, "Stay as long as you need." And honestly, I don't know what I would have done without him at that moment, because I felt completely lost. The next few days were a blur. I blocked Vanessa everywhere. Phone, social media, email, everything. Because I knew that if I gave her the opportunity to contact me, she was going to try to convince me to give her another chance, and I wasn't willing to hear that. But she found ways to reach me anyway. She started contacting mutual friends, my family, even her older sister Angela called me trying to make me change my mind, telling me that Vanessa was devastated, that she had made a mistake, but that she really loved me. And I told them all the same thing, that my decision was made and that there was no going back. I hired a lawyer like a week after leaving the house, a guy recommended by a coworker who had gone through a divorce a few years ago, and we started the divorce proceedings formally. Vanessa tried to complicate everything at first, She didn't want to sign the papers. She said we needed to talk more, that she was willing to do whatever it took. But my lawyer was clear with her and her lawyer. This was going to happen one way or another, and the faster she cooperated, the easier it would be for everyone. Eventually, she signed. I think she finally understood that there was no way I was coming back after what she had done, and the process started moving faster. We had to divide everything: the house, the bank accounts, the furniture, all that stuff you accumulate after almost 10 years together, and every decision about who got what felt like tearing off another piece of what had been my life. I started focusing on myself. Sounds cliche, but it's true. I went back to the gym, something I had stopped doing like 2 years ago. I started spending more time with friends, focusing more on my work. Basically, I threw myself into keeping busy so I wouldn't think so much about everything I had lost. Some days were easier than others. There were days when I would wake up, and for a second I would forget what had happened, and then it would all hit me again. But over time, those days became less frequent. The house sold like 3 months after I started the divorce. We got a decent offer and split the money half and half through our lawyers. I didn't want to have to see her or talk to her directly about anything. Vanessa tried to call me from unknown numbers several times. At first to beg me to reconsider, and then to talk about practical things, about the sale of the house and the division of things. And eventually, I told my lawyer to tell her that all communications had to be through them, that I didn't want to have direct contact with her. The divorce was finalized like a month ago, almost 4 months after I discovered everything. And it was weird, like I signed the papers and that was it. Almost 10 years of marriage ended with a few signatures on legal documents. I didn't feel relief exactly. It was more like a sense of closure, that I could finally start moving forward without having that weight on me. Isaiah helped me find a small but decent apartment near my work. I started furnishing the place little by little, buying only what I really needed. And it feels good to have a space that's completely mine, without memories of Vanessa in every corner. Last week, Vanessa called me from a new number. I recognized her voice immediately, but this time I didn't hang up. Something made me listen to what she had to say. She told me she just wanted to know how I was, that she knew I probably didn't want to talk to her but that she needed to. Tell me she was very sorry for everything that had happened, that she didn't expect me to forgive her but that she wanted me to know she deeply regretted hurting me. I told her I appreciated her apologizing, but that it didn't change anything. That what she had done destroyed something that couldn't be repaired, and that I needed her to respect my space from now on. She said she understood and hung up. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her completely. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to. What I do know is that I made the right decision to leave. Some people have told me I was too harsh, that I should have given her another chance, that 6 months of mistakes don't erase 10 years of marriage, but I don't see it that way. For me, trust is everything in a relationship, and once it's broken that way, there's no way to rebuild it, at least not for me. I'm better now. I'm not going to say I'm completely fine or that all this didn't affect me because I'd be lying, but I'm in a better place than I was 4 months ago when everything exploded. Yesterday, I was organizing some boxes with things from the old house that I finally decided to go through, and I found photos from our wedding, from trips we took together, from moments that at the time seemed perfect, and I sat there looking at them thinking about how it's possible that something that felt so real and so solid could fall apart so completely. I guess you never really know someone 100%. No matter how long you're with that person, there are always parts of them that remain hidden until something brings them to light. I put them back in the box and put it in the back of the closet. I'm not ready to throw them away yet, but I don't need to have them in sight either.